Might need a guard. Every loss taken to heart. Me first, that cannot be. Must be these underdog episodes, see? Feeling much better, so suddenly under the moniker Monica G. Crafted at night while all of them sleep. I won't look a fool, taking this tool, defeating the opposition around me. No, I'm not sorry. Yes, I'm taking this knowledge imparted. Just barking no harm, don't be startled. Yes, I'm taking the title, and it's so vital. Thanks for the ride, I'll never be idle. Turn up the dial, it's about to get wild, and the points gon' pile up.
Dynasty underdog bite down, over the day and the night. Now, easy as flying a kite. Now, come take a look at it right now. Dynasty underdog bite down, up at the day and the night. Now, easy as flying a kite. Now, come take a look at it right now.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 174 of Dynasty Underdog. I'm your host, Uriah Dawkins. Joined with me tonight, Billy Beeman, and welcome back again, Jake Abrams. What's up, guys?
Just gonna see how long it takes for my stream to spaz out this episode. So,
45 minutes, something like that. Yeah.
Let's hop right into it before I start lagging.
All right, let's hop into some news and nonsense. A lot of injuries again. This has been that way this year. Maybe it is like this every year. It just doesn't seem like it. Ramondre Stevenson, ankle. Looked pretty bad. I'm sure he's going to miss weeks. I guess for all you who couldn't sell Zeke, which has been probably a pretty hard task to do, you might have a chance now, especially if you're in leagues that don't have trade deadlines.
Yeah, the notorious hip drop tackle.
Yeah,
takes another victim. Yeah, it was it's a brutal looking one. Hopefully, he gets away without breaking something, and it's just like a high ankle sprain or something like that. But yeah, I think we lost him for the fantasy playoffs. And if you have Zeke, you gained definitely a usable asset, I would say at this point, a flex option. But outside of that, like I'm definitely not going out and paying much for a Zeke. I mean, maybe if you could steal him for like a fourth off somebody, it'll be worth it in the end if you really need some depth on your team down the stretch. But yeah, it's rough with Ramondre. I'm wondering if there's like a buy opportunity with Stevenson, but I don't even know if it's like super appealing given the state of the team.
I'm staying away.
Yeah. I will be trying to
short and sweet.
shop Zeke where I'm not contending, but we'll see. Kenny Pickett, this one kind of sucks because, again, the second week of Matt Canada-less offense, like he's just throwing the ball different. He was looking better, way more competent, and he goes down with the ankle injury. It didn't look like an ankle to me at first, but they're saying an ankle injury. They said he's been nursing that ankle for a while, and so the reports are that it's probably pretty bad. Probably won't see him again the rest of the fantasy season.
Yeah, Mitch Trubisky's not good for the fantasy options. It's not. I mean, the running backs are going to be fed, I guess, and they're a playoff team, so they're not just going to shut it all down.
No.
So you have that going for you in terms of like assets, but long term, like this isn't really a big issue. I'm wondering if like is anybody here buying Kenny Pickett, especially now you're going to have like an opportunity, a little window with him going down in the fantasy playoffs, teams that may need help, whatever, yada, yada, yada.
Maybe if I had like Browning or something, I might try to move Browning for Pickett. And obviously throwing a little something there because I think Browning's going to be useful for the rest of the season and people might be scared to get off of Pickett, but I don't know. Not really buying or selling there.
I would be interested if I had a quarterback needy team, but thankfully I build my teams away from that situation, unlike Billy.
My DU team weeps.
Sorry, that was completely unnecessary. But yeah, no, in all seriousness, I think this is a great time to buy the dip. He should be back final 2 weeks of the regular season based on what they're saying. So we should hopefully be able to see a little bit more of what he has to offer. And I think in the grand scheme of things, this is the time to buy before he starts to bring their team into the playoffs.
I think you could move Baker or Stafford for him to a team that, again, needs like a quarterback if they lost Pickett in a playoff run. And nobody's probably too attached to Pickett. So probably looking to make one of those kind of moves for Pickett if you are looking to make a move for Pickett.
Next one, which is a little more serious, Trevor Lawrence with the ankle. I'm not saying that injury is more serious. It's just more serious because he's a better asset to have in Dynasty. You've been starting him all year. He's probably been doing pretty good for you. I know he has for me. But his ankle, they made him walk to the locker room. Some people said that he wanted to walk to the locker room. It's just ridiculous to me why you do that to your starting franchise quarterback. But, Trevor Lawrence ankle, he had the same injury, I think, last year, the year before, and he came back pretty quick. So we'll see. He's young, so hopefully nothing's broken there. I haven't heard anything that anything's broken. So
they diagnosed as a high ankle sprain. So what is that typically? 3 weeks, depending. Running backs usually longer, quarterbacks usually a little bit earlier. I don't understand how there's any logic behind that, like, physio group. Like, how are you a trained professional doctor and you're like, you know what, dude who either just tore his ACL or sprained his ankle or potentially a fractured a bone, let's make that guy walk into the locker room. That makes it logical.
Yeah. Do they not own one of those carts? Like,
they put it into the pool that they wanted to show 3 times during.
Like, what are we doing here? Like, this is your franchise quarterback. It's your franchise here. I don't know. This is
negligence.
The deed was done. Can't get worse.
I think a lot of the analysis in general around, like, especially these like higher profile assets is going to, especially since we're in the playoff push, is going to be around, like, can you snag some of these assets off of teams who need points now? So I think I saw somebody, I forgot where it was, maybe it was Twitter, chopping it up about, like, would you move Trevor Lawrence if you needed a quarterback for Kyler Murray straight up?
I would. I'm in that
I don't
situation.
think I'd be. Oh, are you?
I'm in that situation, and you too. I think I would, because I think the difference between Kyler and Jordan Love, who's my QB3, is pretty big. And I think for me to potentially win it this year, which I don't think I'm that far away from, is
Josh ready to get back into the fold? No.
I don't think I'm that far away from it, to be honest. So I think, and this is a question that we have for later on in the show, but kind of, what are you willing to trade away for the future to win now? Yeah,
that's fair. I just think that the future is too unclear with Kyler, and I think Trevor Lawrence is just so clear, at least in my opinion, that gap. Maybe I just don't know if I don't have Kyler Murray's schedule right in front of me, and that would matter a little bit. But it's right. I'm not. In general, I think you guys know I'm not that confident in a Kyler Murray as the player, outside of just fantasy, just as a player. So I don't think that I'd be comfortable moving that direction. But it is close for sure, and I think that some people would. So there's opportunity out there for those kind of things for sure, if you want to do it.
All right. Tank Dell got rolled up on. I think they put him on IR right away. So Tank's done for the year.
Before the game ended, yeah.
They really did, right? There's a report that he was going straight on the IR before the game even ended. It's crazy.
It's not all about me, but I'm doing pretty well in Scott Fishbowl, and Trevor Lawrence is one of my quarterbacks, and Tank Dell has been killing it for me. So we'll see how that goes.
That's tough.
So Puka versus Tank. What do you want to talk about here?
I just wanted to rehash it. We talked about it last week a little bit, and I think I don't know if all of us did, but I think we did. And on the side of Dell, given like situation and everything, does this change it at all for you?
No,
I don't think so. I kind of still have the same feelings.
I mean, Puka also went off, so
yeah,
he did that. He also got injured.
Jake's like, yeah, he's still mid, like big mid, whatever.
I did put in the group chat that I did believe that he looked better for run after catch than he has all year. There were 2 or 3 runs that he had, like 2 legitimate end arounds that he looked great with the ball in his hands, and then there was a reception that was like a 15-yarder that ended up pulling. He ended up pulling out for like, I think it was like 45, 50 yards.
They also brought a rush back from him that was like a 60, not a 60, it was like a 30, 40-yard rush, I think. Got brought back on like a holding call or something like that too.
Toro is a hell of a drug.
Yeah.
Yeah. He didn't even know that he had an AC joint at the time. So
He's
great.
like, well, I don't know. It's my leg, man.
Yeah.
Josh, I don't think Jake was ever that high on Puka, but certainly not
Yeah.
as high as he was. I don't think early in the season, if he ever was at all.
Yeah, I would say to Josh's point, he's bringing up a couple of trade conversations that we had, and I was just trying to trade Puka for market value, and Josh was trying to trade him for below market value. So I was like, yeah, my value has always been relatively low on Puka, but if you own the asset, you want to sell for at least market. I'm not going to sell him for less just because I don't like him. Like, this is not how I roll, unfortunately.
That's fair. That's the way to go.
Yeah.
All right. Hollywood Brown, heel. He got hurt. Seems like he hurts like his foot like
all the time,
3-4 times a year. I don't know. It's almost like Amari just always gets injured. But yeah. Hollywood Brown with a heel. Not sure if it matters because the only player on that team that you really want is Trey McBride, so it doesn't matter.
True.
Yeah, all it does is help Trey McBride. That's all we need to know. I'm not sure how severe the injury is. Probably not much actionable about that.
No. Christian Watson, hammy, which he was going hammy in this game. He was having a pretty good game for himself. And then he slowed down to decelerate to just, I think, try to stay in bounds or get out of bounds 1 and 2. And then he just went down. And it wasn't his knee or anything. It was a hammy, so I guess that's good-ish. But
I wouldn't say so.
I said ish. And, but yeah, 5th injury to the hammy in 3 years, according to
that's me.
Our local doctor, the DU doc.
DU doc. I saw that. I saw that stat roaming around. So since his his last year in college, plus his 2 injuries last year, plus now his 2 injuries this year, it's his 5th injury to, I believe, the same exact hamstring. So I hear you, Uriah, but that's terrible news. Terrible news that he has one absolutely shredded hamstring that doesn't seem to be able to heal properly. If what looks like a relatively potential chance for them to push into the playoffs, that means that his season's probably not over, and they're going to rush him back, and there's a good chance the poor guy is going to drop again. So keep your eyes out. DU doc.
It's Jaden Reed's season, right? Or Romeo Dobbs. Romeo Dobbs. Yeah, Dontavian Wicks. I mean, take your pick for sure.
Malik Heath. Come on. They have like do they have a single senior wide receiver? Like Romeo Dobbs is the only
youngest team in the league.
Malik effing Heath, bro. This guy, I'm pretty sure he went off against the Patriots, right? Like that's what it was. Like, come on, like what are we doing? Oh my god, that was ridiculous. Like Christian Watson. I think he actually has some appeal in general, but I don't know if he's ever going to be consistent enough in general or be able to stay on the field consistently enough in general. So yeah, like it's just he's such a risky asset with a lot of upside. He reminds me exactly, and I think I said something like this on Twitter, of Will Fuller, like very, very Will Fuller-ish player, right? Like a guy who has all the talent in the world and all the upside in the world, but probably will never be able to stay on the field and put it all together in exactly the right moments with all the pieces and factors. It's just not, it's not working out for him. So it's this guy kind of just stay away from.
All right, we talked about this. Puka left with an injury. He was actually out for quite a while, and it turns out it's an AC joint. They shot him up with drugs, and he was able to come back in the game, play for a little bit. But it's something to keep an eye on.
He's a beast. Kid's a beast.
Keenan's playing through the same injury, and he's like 37 years old. So I think a 23-year-old will be fine.
All right.
Yeah, and averaging about the same amount of points per game.
Yeah. True. True.
All right, last one. Brian Robinson, hammy. That one kind of sucks because he's a kid. I mean, anytime a new rookie gets drafted and then he gets shot in the leg and then comes back in a couple weeks and just takes the incumbents and just comes in and just takes Antonio Gibson's role. Like his wounds aren't even healed yet. They still got scabs and shit. And he's like, yeah, it's my job. You kind of want to root for that guy. So that does suck. I know there's like a really unhealthy like love and following for Antonio Gibson. So this would be a good time to, I think personally, do both. Try to buy Brian Robinson and also at the same time try to sell Antonio Gibson. Team considering.
But yeah, that's interesting. I think maybe I'm putting my like playoff glasses on too much because I do like Antonio Gibson all of a sudden feels like kind of an appealing asset. playoff wise, because he's already getting plenty of touches in the passing game, a little bit of work in the running game, scoring around 9-10 fantasy points here and there. Like if that can double, you know what I mean? You're working with something. So like, what would you feel comfortable taking if you had him, and what would you feel like? Would you take a third if you had
Antonio Gibson?
No.
Yeah,
No,
right?
I'd take a second
So
because someone
it need to be a second.
Yeah.
What would you?
It's gonna be a
would you send
contender, right?
second?
So you're thinking like
Would you send-
210, 211, 212, right?
Yeah, I'd
Yeah,
send a
would
late second probably.
You would send a late second.
It-
I think I would too.
Yep.
Desperation says a lot, but this is the time to pay up for that type of asset. And he's not that old, so don't get me wrong. Using a wide receiver at running back probably doesn't have that many legs to it, especially if Riverboat Ron is gone anytime soon. So, need to be conscientious of that. Absolutely. Like, I'm very well aware of that, but I'd still probably spend a late second on something like that.
Yeah.
You
Thoughts
might be
on
able to
Chris
get them-
Rodriguez? Think he is able to take any of the snap share?
They'll give him the ball a couple times. Yeah.
You think it's
He'll-
only going to be a couple?
Uh,
I think it's closer to 10 than not.
Yeah, I think it's going to be closer to 10 than not as well. And if he's successful, we already know that Antonio Gibson doesn't run the ball particularly well. I think he could potentially take a larger share by maybe the finals championship game, something like that in fantasy. I don't know. Where you're looking at maybe like week 16, 17, but still could be something.
Got a Craig Reynolds on your hands here. I like Chris Rodriguez coming out. He's just like a good running back. Like it's not, and when I say it like that, I mean like an old school kind of just like downhill runner, blocks well and whatnot. But it's just I'm thinking more about it. Like I feel like if I'm trading a second, I need to be getting like a third back, like Antonio Gibson in a third. Like if you can do that, I'd feel pretty comfortable about it. I don't know. Anyway,
Right.
we're harping on a point that we don't need to be probably.
Yeah, none of us are making that move probably. So
I don't think that gets done. So, all right. What did we learn and what stood out? Week 13.
Yeah, it's flying by. It's flying by, fam.
I hope everybody's getting ready for playoffs. If not, I hope you're secured that 101 or 102 by now. If you're staring the 105 through 108 pick, you did your dynasty wrong. But which I have done. I have plenty of leagues like that. So I'm just saying, let's do better. Let's do better. All right,
I'm not criticizing you.
I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying we together, we could do better. Brock Purdy, is he legit? I got to say, here's the thing, and I'll be as brief as possible. If he wasn't in San Francisco, I don't think he'd be starting anywhere. But he is, so you can't ignore that, right? He is. Same with like Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson. Like those guys aren't balling out if they're not with Mike McDaniels, the quarterback whisperer. But Brock Purdy is with San Francisco, and he is leading the entire league in EPA by a decent margin. So yeah, he's legit. As long as he's paired up there in San Francisco, he's legit. I never thought I'd say it, but it's just there's no denying it, really.
Jake doesn't want to say it.
I feel like I got called out pretty hard from Joe last week in the comments because I even questioned the fact that Jordan Love could be in a relative value sphere as Brock Purdy, which I wasn't saying that I would trade Jordan Love or Brock Purdy straight up for one another, but I think the kid's playing out of his mind. I think he's been legit.
Which one, Purdy or Love?
Oh, Purdy. No, not both. No. I don't think both. But yeah, I think Purdy's been playing out of his mind. He's had a couple of short weeks with some unfortunate injuries to the team that I think have made him look worse than I think the performances truly are when you file back the tape. Overall, he's in a very interesting group on KTC. The guys around him are Kyler, Dak, Jordan Love, Justin Fields.
You take almost every one of those over him. Just except for probably maybe Justin Fields, but like
you take Jordan Love over Brock Purdy.
I'd probably take Brock Purdy. No, I'd take Brock Purdy. I mean, the situation's so much better for Purdy.
Yeah.
But like I actually didn't hear you say love there. But in terms of like Dak Prescott, like those kind of guys, like Kyler, I think you said Justin Herbert maybe.
No, he's much.
You
further
said
up.
I heard Fields. Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. There's definitely a couple guys I'd take over him in that spot for sure. Dak is just wholly underrated.
He's kind of like in this weird dead zone in terms of dynasty value, I think, for quarterbacks, where Purdy's like the last remaining solid asset, and then everyone beneath him is kind of at that place where you're just basically throwing darts at a wall and hoping that situation either changes or they finally come to terms with how good or bad they are. But in the grand scheme of things, I don't think you can turn your head on the way he's been performing this year. And that's coming from a person who saw him live. And honestly, he was against the Giants. Yeah, I'm aware of that. But he looked very good live. Like the pacing of their offense is very much dictated by how they use CMC. But that's the veil. I think a lot of the way that their offense actually is dictated is by his communication and how quickly he's actually able to move the ball out of his hands. His release is actually very, very good for a last pick of the draft quarterback. And for me, I think you're going to see him probably in the NFL for a very long time, simply because he's going to be very, very cheap, at least through this rookie contract.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's definitely true.
Jordan Love, again, is Jordan Love legit? He started off hot. We saw that. It's not his rookie year, but it's kind of like his rookie. It's kind of like his rookie year. That's his first year actually starting, right? So he started off pretty hot, throwing 4 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns a game. And then he went through a slump. But this last like 3-4 weeks, he's balling out. He's balling out of his mind. He just beat Patrick Mahomes on primetime. Like refs,
and
whatever.
And the Detroit Lions right before that season.
Yeah, and the Detroit Lions right before that. Like, 2 of the best, quote unquote, best teams in the league, and he's out there doing it. So, I think that having Jordan Love sit for a while, like I think teams should do this a little more often. I don't think it ever is really going to hurt a player. I remember talking about Jordan Love like 2 years ago. We might have had, maybe this is just a conversation we had Ben on from Australia. And we're just talking about how Jordan Love was drafted in the first and how first-round quarterbacks are always going to get a chance to start. And so, yeah, we were asking, hey, should we be adding him to our roster? Because we don't know what's going to go on with Aaron Rodgers. This is before Aaron Rodgers for sure was even out. Actually got a big extension to stay in Green Bay for like 2 more years at the time. But this just proves that if a team drafts a quarterback in the first round, they're going to give every chance they can get, and that we should probably never move off of them too early. So Jordan Love is doing it better than I thought he would. Is he legit? I don't know. I have a little more faith in Brock Purdy at this point, but Jordan Love's looking pretty good.
Yeah, that would line up that episode with Ben. I know he's like a Love truther.
I think it was Ben.
So, yeah, that would definitely line up. Like I think we talked about Love last week a little bit, and I think it's appropriate to talk about him again because he continues to show, a little bit more than I think some of us thought that he had in him. And just diving into the numbers a little bit, I wanted to see kind of what the quarterbacks were doing over the last couple of weeks, and just looking from week 9 through 13 it is now I can do. Sorry, I was looking at this before the week 13 was over, but now I have it through week 13. So week 9 through week 13, and looking quarterbacks with what's the threshold? It's like over 100 dropbacks. So just kind of filtering anybody out that was trash or was like a backup. And our top 5 quarterbacks are Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, Brock Purdy, Jordan Love, and CJ Stroud. And that's passing grade from PFF. But also just looking at the numbers, I mean, his big throw percentage is up. His adjusted completion percentage is up. Like he's at around 78.2%, which is like way up from his early season numbers. But, talking about Brock Purdy a little bit, Brock Purdy's number 3 on this list, right? Above Jordan Love. His adjusted completion percentage is above 80%, which is just absurd. These guys are pretty interesting dynasty assets. I'm definitely coming around on both of these guys being a little bit more long-term stable assets than I previously thought. And yeah, I've definitely besmirched Jordan Love's name quite a bit in the past. So I'll do my best to continue to right the ship and kind of discuss whenever I see him on the uptick here. But yeah, I like what I see from both these guys. I think it's and I think it shows in the numbers too.
Question. This is more football, like executive football related. Is it actually in a franchise's best interest to not let a first round quarterback not play until near the end of their rookie contract so that they could actually get a cheaper secondary contract that could potentially lock the player in for a longer future with the team, even though they have to be basically capped at a relatively high value for that first round pick, knowing that, it has a certain range between 1 through 32 or whatever it is. Because he's kind of in this situation, right, where I think they already agreed to a 5th-year option, but he is now stuck in the situation where if he performs too well, he might kind of play himself out of a big contract, if that makes sense.
Because of the 5th-year option?
They'll franchise tag him again in a year if they have to. He could go the route of, like, say, a Kirk Cousins. The team has options for the next couple of years, right?
The team does have options.
They waited 4 years to actually see what he has, but they had an MVP in front of them. So I understand that financially. I get what you're saying. Like, you want to get 4 years on a cheap quarterback contract. But what if your first round quarterback isn't actually playoff worthy until like his 4th year, right? Or third or 4th year. So it is what it is. So it's a great question. Ideally, you'd want to go the Russell Wilson route where he just steps on the scene and starts balling out, or Dak Prescott, although we don't have a Super Bowl to show for it, but started balling out immediately his rookie year, and you just start with them and you're going with a guy who's only costing you a couple bucks. But we don't get to see these quarterbacks sit behind the starter for a very long time anymore. And the 2 more recent ones that I've seen have been panning out okay. I'm not saying Jordan Love is going to go the way of Pat Mahomes, but Pat Mahomes sat behind Alex Smith for a good reason, because Alex Smith is a really good quarterback. And Jordan Love did it for the same reason. I see what you're saying from a team standpoint, but I think just in general for these kids' development, I do think that sitting probably does help a little bit.
Thanks.
All right, Jake Browning. Dynasty value. I could tell you I got an offer for him today. Someone offered me Jake Browning and Rashad White. I like to call him Rashad White, for a 24 first. So whatever that means. What?
It doesn't mean anything that I want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing good.
I think Jake Browning. Long term, there's not a whole lot of value. For the rest of the year, there's probably some value there. Like, I'd send a 3rd for him if I lost all my starting quarterbacks. Like, probably some teams have.
Yeah, I think that's the right take.
Someone was actually texting me today, and that's exactly what I told him. I was like, you have him, try and sell him for a 3rd. I think that's probably the most you're going to be able to get for him. He's just like, I don't know. I think I can only get a 4th. And I was like, nah, I think you can get a 3rd. Try and get a 3rd. And I think that's about what market value is right
now. Chase Brown's, I think.
What did he actually finish with? Like
9 for 61, I believe, was the total.
Yeah, I was looking for. This is okay. Yeah, that's not bad. And this is like really the first time he's actually gotten decent usage, and he was by far the most effective rusher on the team in terms of. They chuck Joe Mixon in the end zone twice per usual, but
I know.
Like, he was wholly ineffective. He 3.5 yards a carry. I'm not yards per carry guy or anything like that, but you could look at any of the numbers, advanced metrics on it. It's going to look poor for Mixon because he's just an inefficient runner at this point, inefficient workhorse, volume-based running back. I think Chase Brown looked really, really sharp. So I don't think, this season's a tough one because you got Jake Browning behind center. So I think the upside is only it's only as far as I guess Jake Browning is going to take them. But going into next year, there's no doubt that Mixon's going to be out, right? Like, unless he takes some like uber team friendly deal, which it could happen, but I assume he's going to go out there and get a little bit of money from some other team. We're probably going to have a mixture of Chase Brown and some other, free agent running back, but he'll definitely be more involved next year. So he's a buy for me, and I think you could definitely get him for less than a second round pick between now and next year.
I think Mixon could. It's going to be extreme comment, but I think Mixon could find himself in like running back 2 territory next year on a team.
Oh, for sure. He'd like Dalvin Cook-esque, like
yeah,
fall
exactly.
off the map.
Yeah. I think based on performance plus current running back market situation, there's even a chance that he might not even sign right away, given that he probably wants to get paid. And I think he's going to be putting himself in a pretty precarious situation. If he does do a team-friendly deal, I think he'll get usage in Cincinnati. But if he wants to shop the market, there's a chance that Mixon's fantasy value is gone completely after this year.
I think there's a very good chance that his career takes the career path here of Zeke Elliott, where he waits until way late in the season to sign somewhere and is just kind of a complimentary piece.
A bum.
Stop it.
24 random second or 24 random second or Mixon.
For Mixon?
I'd take a second.
Which one?
Right now.
Oh, I'd take a second. I wouldn't buy him.
Even if you're contending?
If you're contending, sure.
Yeah.
Honestly,
like 210, 211, sure.
If I'm a contender, I might sell Mixon for a second. Like I might
honestly
like if unless I desperately need a Mixon, but in my head, like right now I don't have any Mixon, but in my head, if I had him on a team, I'd be like, wow, I don't think this is sustainable. Like this 2 touchdown game is not going to happen again. And you know what I mean? Like maybe it does once, but like, I just don't think that that's something that you should be betting on. So I think you should be getting out now almost no matter what your team looks like. And of course, like Jake said, if you have depth, it's much easier to do so.
I'm speaking from experience where I have Joe Mixon and James Conner. So AKA my running back room is dead.
But still, like I feel like you should be getting rid of these guys even so, because like what's going to happen when they lose all value? Then you can't get rid of them, and then
I hear you, but it's like
unless you're like definitely like these guys are going to take me to the ship.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. This one, Parker Washington sighting. Great. Cool.
Wait, what? Like, why you got to do him like that? I feel like
good.
He looked good, and also he was like, if I didn't pull up my my rookie what's it called, the film grades, but I know that he was like way up there for me, at least definitely the top 10, like probably top 8 or so in terms of film grades. I really like Parker Washington. He was also like a he was also like a Debbie darling coming out of Penn State. And I think like he lost a bit of love, I think size and all that stuff, but he looked good, man. Christian Kirk goes out, and that catch for a touchdown was pretty nice, the concentration and all that. So I don't know, he ended at like 6 catches for 60 yards and a touchdown. I think there might be a little something there.
Maybe.
Yeah, there's some leagues that I'm in that he's not even on a roster right now in Dynasty.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Snatch that man up.
All right. Chubba Wubba. Yeah, so we actually talked about Chuba Hubbard. I remember during like the draft, pre-draft process, me and Billy were kind of working through this, and who'd we have? We had Lindelians on, and she was talking because Chuba came from
OSU
the college version of the Cowboys. So what was that? Oklahoma?
Oklahoma State.
Yeah,
yes,
Oklahoma State. Yeah,
OSU. Yeah. So I think he was Oklahoma State, and he was pretty highly touted prospect until his senior year. Basically, his senior year,
until he blew his knee out. Yeah,
and then he didn't really do anything in the NFL. But he took the job from Miles Sanders. I was just asking. I had to ask, like, is like Miles Sanders actually injured? And Jake's like, nah, like he's healthy. He just Chuba took the job. So
his ego's injured. Yeah,
it's crazy. So yeah, Chuba, are you interested in him?
I don't know. Probably not. I'd be more interested in selling him. I think that's really the only direction you should be looking at this from. He might be worth like holding for the playoff run. I think more worth holding than like Mixon is for the playoff run. But I'd probably still sell for something similar.
Yeah, I
Like
think that's fair.
like a second round pick, whatever.
Yeah,
I'm pretty concerned about that whole team moving forward, to be completely honest. The way that they're built, Carolina, I'm just not entirely excited about what their future looks like, regardless of who they hire as a head coach. So I don't know, that running back room, that offensive line outside of
Toss it all in the air.
Yeah, literally the wide receiver. Like, you can keep going. Talk about tossing yourself out. Mingo just jumping out of bounds.
So good.
But yeah,
how does that even happen?
It doesn't happen to a normal athlete, but it's Mingo, and at the end of the day, you just have to accept it. But yeah, I don't want anything to do with that team personally.
Yeah, not yet.
That's fair.
Devon Echan is back. And
Did you pronounce that right? It was good.
I did. I tried to. I mean, I like Echan a whole lot better, but he asked to be pronounced Echan, so I'm gonna be respectful and call him Echan. Yeah, he's back. He looked good. Any healthy running back that's again being coached by that Mike McDaniel's, like, I want a piece of that. So welcome back, tiny one.
I want to look at his KTC value real quick. I think he's still pretty high up there in terms of value. Does the size concern you guys, given just him re-aggravating the injury immediately and all that stuff? I know he got like a lot of garbage time touches here too. This wasn't early on in the game, so I know most are still going to be plenty involved.
He's RB5, by the way.
That's what I was getting at. Yeah, that's pretty high. Like
that's fucking insanely high.
Yeah, like does anybody here like buy that price?
No.
So we're selling Echan?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I don't think what he does is remotely sustainable at all. I think that this whole new dynasty outlook on these like tiny running back dudes who have basically zero weight to them, they're just not pliable for the NFL. And call me old school, call me, dilapidated in the brain. I don't know, but dude, like, there's no way that him or Keaton Mitchell have long-standing careers in the NFL. I just don't see it.
I agree.
He's sitting around guys like Devonta Smith, Brock Purdy, Travis Etienne, Brandon Ayuk, TJ Hawkinson, Puka Nacua.
Superflex, trade Echan for Purdy. And just go to bed and know that you did a good thing.
Who the fuck is doing that trade though? Like, is anyone doing that trade?
KTC.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, the KTC people are for sure. I bet you do. That's what's crazy is, like, we like to think that that's like 1% of our league. It's like 80% of our league is like KTC folks. Just so you know. Like, you know what I mean? Like, most of the people in our leagues are wheeling and dealing, just like not even considering.
That's like Dolphins hometown truther ratings, in my opinion. Like, there's no way that Devonta Smith or Devon Echan, like, that's just crazy to me. But
people love the game breaker stuff, like if you have that game breaker in you, that elite upside.
Yeah. Superstar X Factor in Madden.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, it's real. It's real. Okay. Yeah, let's get off this topic. All
right. JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba. On the rise, yeah. He hasn't quite taken the job from Lockett, like some might have wanted or whatever, but they're using him a lot more. They're using him different ways than they have. Like, they're letting him run more sophisticated routes, and he's just making plays. Like, he's gaining trust with the quarterback there. Not sure the quarterback there will be there next year, but I don't think that really matters. Like, JSN is really good, and it's nice to see him post-injury and everything else that started the beginning of the season with him to kind of come back and start to hit. So wheels up on JSN.
Hanging around wide receiver 16 right now on KTC. You're talking about ahead of Michael Pittman, Stephon Diggs, Zay Flowers, just behind Addison, Tank Dell, DK Metcalf.
So he's a little high.
It's a little high.
It's a little high.
I don't think
surprised.
Yeah, me too. I think that his value has taken a slight spike after the last couple of weeks, but it was insanely high coming out of the rookie draft based on what I'm looking at. And like we're talking
Yeah.
close to wide receiver 9-10 numbers, which is a bit insane. So this is just more so things I think evening out to probably where he should have sat post rookie draft. But you know, Puka Nacua a couple weeks ago on KTC was like wide receiver 7. So make that make sense.
Looks like we missed the buy window on JSN.
I think so.
Yeah.
About 2 or 3 weeks ago was the big buy window, I think.
That's what I learned.
I love that comment. All right. CeeDee Lamb. This is a good question. Man, was this Joe was asking about this?
Yeah.
No, Ben.
It was Ben.
Yeah. CeeDee Lamb
Ben.
in the same tier with Justin Jefferson and Chase. And all bias and homers aside, I think Jake had said this actually. I think they're in the same tier, but CeeDee Lamb is at the bottom of that tier, and I totally agree. Like I don't see how you could take him out of that tier, especially with the quarterback situations and everything else there. Like CeeDee Lamb has turned into an absolute dog this year.
How is it that the two top wide receivers have lost their quarterbacks? Both Chase and Jefferson lost their quarterbacks. That's just I didn't even kind of put that together in my head. That's ridiculous. Yeah, but yeah, I'm trying to think why we don't consider him the same as those guys at this point, right? Because I feel like he finally hit his stride. Like this is he's finally hitting kind of the volume, the target shares that you look for in those. I don't think any biases aside in those, top options, those, wide receiver 1, 2, 3 overall territory, really wide receiver 1, 2 territory kind of thing. And I think he's hit that. He has the quarterback for it. I don't think either one of them are going anywhere. So I think we should kind of consider him in that same tier. And I think we all said this, or we were kind of talking around it in the Discord that I don't think there's any reason to trade one for the other necessarily at this point. They're all about the same, I guess. I mean, yeah, if you get plus on either, any of them, I guess that's what you would do. But yeah, I love CD at this point. I think he looks great.
We had the same conversation about Chase and JJ. Just like, why would anybody want to trade either unless you could absolutely get something plus on top? Because it's essentially the same to me. Sorry, Jake.
No, you're good. And to that point, there was a trade earlier that was discussed. I think it was while Billy was out, but it was actually a Billy trade in D1 where it was JJ straight up for Chase, right? And in that circumstance, it makes a ton of sense because one team's tanking, the other team's trying to compete. Like that's the type of situation where you'd move laterally in terms of value. But going back to the deep philosophical question that Billy presented, why do people view CeeDee Lamb as lesser than? I think it has a lot to do with the fact that people are obsessed with points in an individual game. And if you look back to specifically last year and the year before, when you look at guys like Chase and Justin Jefferson, they're very consistently hovering around that 20 point per game mark, but literally they're scoring 20 points per game, not on average. Whereas a guy like CD has a lot more boom and busts in previous years. This is probably the first year where you're starting to see more consistent, higher scoring point games. And I think that's why he's starting to get more credit. But the reality is that the talent's always been there. Obviously, he's been dealing, unfortunately, with some Dak injuries over the last 2 seasons. So that's going to affect how, productive he's going to be. Cooper Rush is not Dak Prescott. So, it's a tough situation unless he's playing the Giants, and then therefore Cooper Rush plays like Dak Prescott. But I think that's probably the reality behind, why the general consensus has always been kind of off of CD, which I don't think is a legitimate argument.
I think you're right. It took CD a couple of years to actually quote unquote break out, whereas Chase and Jefferson came out the gate the rookie year. So
yeah. I think it's also possible that maybe they were slightly more ready, NFL ready, And there was something about CD, and not necessarily technique-wise or anything like that, but something about CD coming out that I think has completely changed this year specifically is his size. Like, he looks like he put on weight. He looks thicker. He looks like he can sustain, physicality in the NFL. And that was something I didn't see as much coming out. And it was funny. I noticed it, I think, watching on maybe Thanksgiving or this last week. I forgot, but I was watching. I was like, he looks thicker and he looks just like a little bit more stout out there, a little bit more prepared. And that touchdown catch he had in this last game where he, kind of spun around, little acrobatic catch, like those are like that's not something every wide receiver can do. Track that ball, turn around, catch it like that. Seeing that catch, that's a superstar kind of catch. And I just think he's really coming into his own. So just wanted to kind of those more like eye test things, like you can really see it kind of happening for him.
Yeah. Completely unrelated, not on the sheet, but I just want to call out. There was a similar moment, happened twice with Devonta Smith this past weekend. Obviously, they got blown out of the water, but there were 2 receptions that he made where he put his shoulder down into a corner. Yeah. I've never seen that dude do anything like that before. One of them, he no joke actually pushed the corner back. On the second one, he kind of bounced off of him and then went out of bounds. But, seeing that type of elevation in a player's game, those are the moments where in my mind, I'm marking it off. I know I kind of keep notes, unfortunately, during games like that, so that I can remember when those players are making kind of that transition that you don't see those types of plays before. Now, obviously, the real test for players like that is going to be, can they stay consistent? Can they continue to bring that into their game? Or was it, he was just lit up for a big game? Because that's basically the NFC championship in his mind. So is that why he's doing it? Or is he going to be doing that now every single week? If he can do it every single week, then he's adding a lot to his game.
Yeah. We should have put Jake Ferguson on here, but we could talk about him next week. Because that dude was acting like a dog out there.
Yeah, no, he was looking good. He had a great game, 6 for 7 and a touchdown or something like that.
I like the feistiness with like Jamal Adams, and he just like right in his face first, and then he caught the touchdown and like stared him down. I was like, oh, we've talked a good bit about Jake Ferguson on here. I think Jake and I actually maybe more so than you even believe that he's kind of the tight end there, the tight end 1 there for the future. And I think that he's a legit fantasy option going forward. Yeah, he's good. All right. Michael Pittman, dynasty value.
I don't know. He's performing really well. I mean, it's obviously with Gardner Minshew. It's not always going to be like this necessarily in terms of the passes that are coming his way and the kind of balls he's seeing. But I think he's going to be in Indy for a while, which should, he's going to have a stable quarterback situation. Jonathan Taylor there. It's just a good team, and he should be receiving, 8 to 10 targets a game pretty much, and he does pretty well with those when he gets them. So, he's valued around that JSN range. We were just looking at KTC. I saw him in that area. I don't know. Like, is anybody here a buyer of Michael Pittman? Do they want him on their team? I just find myself never wanting him on my team for some reason.
I see him in the same paradoxical universe as Nico Collins, in my opinion. He's a guy that I think fits a certain situation really, really well. But I think if you want them to kind of move up into like that next tier of receiver, you're going to be very, very let down. So as long as you're comfortable with the range of values that he's performing at right now, I think this is kind of his ceiling.
All right. Brandon, Ayuk in a second or Pittman?
Ayuk in a second, I think, for me.
Yeah. Pretty comfortably there. Ayuk in a second. What about Zay Flowers in a second?
Zay Flowers.
Yeah. That one I have more hesitation on, but yeah, Zay Flowers in a second.
Last one.
I made that trade with Josh in Console Wars. I traded Pittman to him for Ayuk in a second.
I love that. I love that trade.
Yeah. Sorry, Josh.
It's okay. I traded away Ayuk for nothing, so it doesn't matter.
Not for nothing. I know what you traded him away for.
Was the Christian Watson
and Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, it's for nothing.
It's
for one hamstring.
He caught me when I was down. I was down and depressed. I'm like, whatever. Here you go, Billy. Have it. I don't care.
Oh my god. One hamstring in 2 hands. Oh my goodness. All right, last one, Michael Pittman or 24 mid first.
Oh, I'd probably take Pittman there probably. I don't see why not.
Can you give me the actual pick? Because I think anything 106 down, I'm taking. Anything
Rome Odunze or Michael Pittman.
Odunze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too. So I think it would be like I'd send a late first for Michael Pittman probably.
Yeah, I think
that's where I come to. Okay.
All right. Next two are kind of the same. Sell Henry. Yes, just do it. Sell Derrick Henry.
I mean, it's kind of like I feel like it's the obligatory moment. Like he just had 2 touchdowns, and albeit he was injured, I think the news is coming around on him. He's going to play in week 14.
Yeah,
sell the man. Like here's your opportunity for like the folks out there. The dude who I saw at the party who's like, no, like I don't want to sell Henry. Don't be I'm trying to think of the word for this.
You can't sell him this time next year.
Don't be tricked by this game and think like, oh, I got my league winner here. I got like what like yeah, he could be part of the league winning team for sure. But if you can, I would move him right off of this game. Like this is the exact game you've been waiting for.
Yeah. And then the next one, time to sit Eckler. Like
this is more specific. I mean like if you have Eckler, are you sitting him for like almost any, like he's been abysmal, like unstartable. Are you just still just putting him out there like start your studs, or are you going different options?
If you can't sell him, you got to start him.
Yeah, that's the way I look at it too. He's gonna have to hit sooner or later, right?
He puts up a 25-point game on your bench, you're gonna hate yourself. Like if the thing you need to do is try to move him for someone who's putting up some type of points, and if you can't, you have to start him.
And you've made it this far into the season, considering that you still have him on your team, you're a contender. Like your team is obviously good enough around him that you want those points when he hits. So I'd rather just continue to take that hit than put in fucking Antonio Gibson, like,
right.
Like I would much rather.
That would be that is what I'm thinking though. That's exactly what I'm thinking. Like an Antonio Gibson type play over him. Is that okay? So we're not there yet. All right.
Not
you would just. How horrible would you feel?
I'm not there either. I still think that. I honestly still think that they scored 6 points.
I know
against the lowly Patriots. All right. Now, granted, our defense
and won the damn game.
Yeah, and won the game. Yeah. Yeah. Right down to the last minute, it was a 1-score game. Oh, Jesus Christ, it was so bad. Oh man, can you believe on Thursday Night Football they're putting out there not Mac Jones? It's going to be Bailey Zappi, and who are they playing? It's another quarterbackless team this Thursday. Oh my God, I can't believe the atrocity we're about to be witnessing. But yeah, I just think that there's a lot. I think that there's a lot more going on. Excuse me,
Steelers.
sorry.
It's the Steelers. Mitch Trubisky against Bailey Zappi. Thursday Night Football, Amazon Prime. You better use those advanced views because you're gonna get skin stats, baby.
Who's the announcer that's there? It's
the old fuck.
Yeah, but he's gonna hang himself, bro. he must hate those games, especially this one. He's like, what am I here for? What is this? But
Herb Street and him, right? Yeah, it's
Jim Nance, right? Jim Nance and Herb Street. No,
it's
not Jim. No, not Jim Nance.
Al Michaels, right?
Al Michaels, sorry, Al Michaels. Yeah,
Jim Nance. He doesn't deserve to be dragged like that.
I know. My bad. I think that there's a lot more going on than Eckler being washed, but that doesn't change the fact that he sucks this entire time. So, yeah, there's nothing good about the situation.
So Kellen Moore is the problem.
I definitely think Kellen Moore is a big part of the problem. I think injury is a big part of the problem. I think their offensive line sucks. So,
I just know how hard the Dallas Cowboys fans went super in on Kellen Moore being the savior. They got rid of him, and now their offense is fantastic.
And gave us 3 straight offensive number 1 seasons with Dak. Like,
I don't know if it's his fault. I know that Brandon Staley's fault. That's what I'll say.
Oh, absolutely. But he's going to probably go with him, right?
That guy needs to go. Honestly, I could see Kellen Moore being interim head coach. I think things turn around there.
They're not going to fire Staley, I don't think.
No, but they should.
Yeah,
it's a terrible fucking organization. Like, yeah, they're going to make the wrong decision like every time. Anyway,
Sorry, I didn't mean to bring up that, but I meant to bring.
no, I expected way better things with Kellen Moore,
Yeah.
and like you see it from my fan base, like, oh, Dak was the one that made Kellen Moore like a head coach candidate. It's like, well, no, like the kid's good, like he's groomed to be an NFL head coach. Like, I don't know what's going on there, and I blame Staley straight up 100%, and the offensive line,
Or Justin
and
Herbert's the
because he
problem.
sucks.
I'm kidding.
Maybe.
All right, let's keep moving.
We're not allowed to say Herbert sucks yet.
Oh boy, this will be a 2-hour pod if we go down that road.
I know. All right, so that's what we learned. Let's talk about segment we did last week, which is just fun talking about regular Dynasty stuff. That's not so week to week important or even not important, but
Player
underdog,
values and stuff.
under the hood. So here's a question: fear of making another trade to fix a poor one.
Do
Yeah,
any of you ever have that fear?
No.
No, I try to forget I ever made a poor one, and then just like let it roll, and then I don't talk about it for a year and be like, oh, oops. But in reality, I don't let a trade that I make that like kind of turned out bad to deter me from trying to make another trade somewhere else. But
Yeah, and I feel like I don't want to speak for Uriah, but I feel like Uriah's actually done a really good job with this, especially this year, where maybe he might lose an individual trade in the interim, but he wants to sell that asset as soon as they're looking better in that immediate future, which I think is exactly how you get out of those types of situations. So even if you sell an asset that is booming on someone else's team, whatever you received back, even if you're not a huge fan of whatever it is, trying to get off of it as fast as possible is probably going to be your best bet, because the drop in the market isn't going to be that exaggerative. It can drop obviously pretty quickly, but there's a stronger chance of you losing even more on that asset if you don't like it, if you continue to hold it. Like,
yeah,
I won't say any names, but they're too long and they're going to be basically nothing. So you could have given up, i.e. like a Brandon Ayuk, for instance. I'm sorry, but could have given up a Brandon Ayuk, for instance, and stuck with Judy and Watson. Potentially those two guys could be close to minimal value by the end of next season. So what do? You try and get out of them as fast as possible. And I know that's something that you've been trying to do, which I give you a lot of credit for.
Yeah, that's actually, it's a really good point, because Console Wars was not necessarily that trade. There was other trades I was thinking about, but that's actually a good example of me fixing trades that I was disappointed in myself for. And apologize for Uriah kind of at his expense there. But, kind of, I had just made a trade for Watson, and I was like, wow, I don't like Watson. Like, why did I just do that? So then I tried to go, and, I kind of, and that was off of another trade that I had made, I think, that I didn't like before that. And I was kind of just like churning till I finally, it kind of fell into place the way I wanted it to. And I'm not saying always just kind of like do that and keep going, because there's risk to that as well. But I do think that, you make a move and you recognize that it was, not an advantageous move for yourself. You can't be afraid. You can't sit back and be like, all right, I shouldn't trade. I shouldn't make it. Like, that's the worst thing you can do. You kind of got to build your resume somehow. And I think, some of those mistakes are just part of the game and part of getting better. So, you got to roll with the punches.
All right. This is a good one. I think probably Jake had this question.
Yeah, sorry for the douchey language in the question. So I'll pose it to the both of you. I'm kind of stuck in the situation where I'm really trying to wrap my head around what I should be doing. What's the price of saving your season? And that can kind of be looked at in a couple different ways, but let's just think of it in a standard Dynasty landscape. Do you have a barometer to how far away you're willing to sell your future to potentially win a singular championship in the immediate?
Pretty far. I mean, I'm willing to go pretty far, but it definitely, like, this is a tricky question, right? Because there's no real, like, cutoff line that exists that I can tell you, like, this is the amount of trade value points I'm willing to give up. Sure. And then it's my cutoff. You know what I mean? Like, that's not really how it works. It's definitely very situational. And yeah, it's just, Yeah, it's a very tough question, but for me, like I just don't want to put myself in a situation where like I have one or two teams like this, very, very few teams like this, but DU2 is a really good example of where I gave up too much future value in general, and it's always to win, in my opinion. I mean, you're not making that many moves to lose, right? Like unless you're tanking, that's a whole different story. So, I'm making moves to win. I'm trying to, switch my quarterback and kind of making moves too fast, but giving up a lot of future value in doing so and putting myself in a position where I don't have future picks. I don't have good players in terms of like, especially like say your quarterback position or something in a super flex league, you put yourself really behind the eight ball in that perspective, right? So you have to be really careful. So I guess more when I'm looking at these things, it's really the assets that I'm trading for. I think the lesson I've taught myself is they need to be super stable assets. Like if I'm trying to go get an asset that I'm going to be spending a lot of future value on. I think a good example of this is trading my future first for Keenan Allen to you in DU3, right? Like I know what I'm getting in Keenan Allen. Like as long as he's healthy, I'm getting 20 plus points a game pretty much, right? Like that's what I'm getting out of him. And I know that I'm probably not going to regret that first too much, even if I lose the championship, kind of like I know I'm whatever. Make the championship, right? So, I mean, I think that's kind of part of the equation to me. It is kind of the asset I'm getting back. But yeah, I don't know. It's also like calculating your chances of actually winning, right? Like if I think the roster is that good, then I care a lot less about what I'm giving up in the future because to me, the title really matters that much. Like I'm willing to really give up a good deal to secure a title. It's hard to get there, man. It's hard to win a title.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I feel like the reason I came up with this question is I have racked my head around my DU2 team to probably a fault. I am consistently an overanalyzer of a lot of things in my life, especially fantasy football. And that specific roster, when I go back to that startup, the startup draft that is, was by far probably the worst draft of any team in that year, which is crazy to say because, there's 11 other teams. Someone else had to have been worse. If you look back at what I drafted to what I have now, I think I currently have like 5 or 6 assets because either the guys have already aged out or they were so bad of picks that I was thankfully able to trade out of them. But I was still competitive in year one. Unfortunately, due to quarterback injuries, I ended up flopping out in the second round. And very well could be in that same situation moving into year 2 or finishing out year 2. So I'm kind of in that mindset of what do I need to give up to make sure that I win now to ensure the fact that I can at least say that I won one of the years, because there's a strong chance that after this year, I'm going to have to go into teardown mode and make sure that things look good in year 4 or 5. But what is that, what is that level of?
Yeah, no, that makes a lot more sense. Like, I think context matters a lot. And in that situation, I'm a lot less likely to try to go all in because it's a much more fragile situation, right? Like you're almost in teardown mode anyway. So in those, like I've had teams like that where I'm like, all right, like maybe I'll try to go acquire like a very cheap piece or something like that and help myself out. But I don't want to give up too much future value because that's likely where I'm going to be taking this team anyway. And that's the stuff I'm going to need. So I don't want to make it harder for myself to have to go get more of that anyway.
Yep.
So in that case, sometimes I'm just because like you never know, like that team could ride it out and win. Like all it takes is a couple games. So
on paper, technically the team is the best in the league, right? Like on average,
I know that team. Yeah.
Like sadly, that's how weird that league is, and due to injuries, like on paper, that team technically is probably. And given that I also didn't have Justin Jefferson or James Conner for most of the season, it's almost like getting a trade at the end of the year with having both those guys available. But, I don't really have high hopes with Josh Dobbs. I had to throw that in there. But, that's the type of thing that I'm like very mentally concerned about moving forward. It's just like, how do I kind of piecemeal this? Because I've already kind of traded away my future in terms of picks as well. I did send away my 25th first basically for James Conner and Keenan Allen very early in the season, which I think was a huge dub.
I mean,
huge
a great
dub,
trade.
right?
Yeah.
And so like being able to like look back at that is great, but it's like if I did that and it's all for naught and I didn't win, then what the fuck did I give up my future for? You know?
Yeah, I mean, James Conner, you're going to lose that, but I think in the end, like, you could probably get something back for Keenan. We underestimate like the liquidity of some of these assets the year after.
Mm-hmm.
Like, unless Keenan Allen tears an ACL, like he's going to, yes, he's knock on wood, he's going to have another year of his career left, and you're going to be able to trade him for something most likely.
That's fair.
You know, not at first. I'm not saying that. But you're going to be able to swing something. So my point being, like, I'd be very careful on those kind of rosters with how much I'm willing to invest into it, knowing that I'm going to have to tear it down anyway. It's a lot kind of like the trade of, I told Uriah, like, you're going to create work for yourself. It's like, you kind of have to know what you're getting into and kind of tell yourself, yeah, like I might be screwing myself here and be okay with that. For me, like with that team, I'm just less likely to do that. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
All right. Last one here is
this is a quick one. It's a quick one. Yeah, this is I'll talk about it real quick because I threw it in here. But this is John Bosch, ever controversial on X or on Twitter or whatever. But he was basically saying that he is getting ready to what do you say? Removing tanking rules is something he's been discussing recently and potentially moving to in some of his leagues this offseason. I guess what he's saying is like doesn't care like max point, like the playoffs and everything is set up how it's set up, right? Like if you want to not start any good players or you want to completely just throw games, like he doesn't care. Tank how you want to tank, do what you want to do. And like to the argument of like, you know, well, you know, I'm competing against him and he was trying earlier in the year and now he's not. So the guy that, you know, my opponent who I'm fighting for a playoff spot with, he's going to get an easy win. And he's like, well, maybe you should just take care of your own business. You know what I mean? And get your ass in the playoffs. Like that's kind of his argument there. What are your guys' thoughts on that while I grab my charger?
Go ahead.
I think for me, the biggest takeaway is really just making sure that you have your own team set up. Like, I don't really. We've actually found this with a DU league this year, where there was a situation where tanking was attempting to happen. I think ? Someone thought they were tanking but didn't know how to tank, and they like intentionally benched all their players and then didn't realize that it was down to possible points that was the real measurement. Like in the grand scheme of things, like the record is really a load of shit. So it's like, you know, if you put out a bad enough team at the end of the day, even though that's your best team, then in the way I look at it, like that's the proper way to tank. If you're putting out a middling team and you think you can still somehow get that 101 and you fail, like that's on you for putting out a middling team instead of a tanking team. Like, I think the rest of it's really just optics. If you want to win games off of teams that are competing, then put out your best team. If you don't, then don't set up your team. Like, I don't really see how any of that really matters. And a lot of dynasty leagues are kind of in that hovering of like 6 to 7 teams compete. And then the bottom 5 teams are in that weird fight for tank, unless it's a startup. And then a lot of startups are kind of like all over the place. That's how I've always kind of seen it. Like when you look at the same kind of percentages in a real NFL league, it's kind of similar. Like there's a group of teams that you know are going to suck ass. There are the Giants, the Patriots, the Carolina Panthers, the Cardinals. Like there are those organizations over the last however many years. It doesn't have to be the same organizations. They're always going to exist at the bottom tier of the league because quarterback situation, something else is going on with the org, coach turnover, whatever it is. It's the same shit in dynasty football, like fantasy football. Like you have to understand that that's going to happen. There's always going to be a team that's looking to the future to attempt to compete. So, you know, putting in a legal roster to me isn't going to prevent a team from tanking. If you're properly tanking, your team better lose every fucking game because your team is properly tanking, or you just use possible points and it removes all of that. At the end of the day, you can still be 6-6 and have the lowest possible points and deserve the 101.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a whole lot to add there. I'm fine with it. Remove the tanking rules altogether. That's perfectly fine. You could have a middling team sitting on your bench, and then what did you earn? You earned the 101. The 101 is very rarely ever going to change your team. So the proper way to tank is to move assets and acquire multiple picks and things like that. And if you're doing that, then the team that you would have out there as a starting roster probably isn't going to win in the first place. So I think it's like what Billy said, is like optics. Like, who cares?
So I guess my question, the only question that really matters, it can be a quick answer from both of you, but does it bother you if a team, like if you're fighting for the playoffs and you need another team to win or whatever, or lose rather, and the team they're going against is just like sitting all their players, like, do you care about that? Or are you just kind of like thinking to yourself, I should have just done better?
That shit happens in the NFL, right? Where teams clinch certain spots in playoffs, and they'll start out a fucking B squad in the last game, and that team is now playing against a team that's trying to get a wild card spot. Guess what? All the other wild card teams, I'm sure they're pissed, but you don't get to control that shit, dude. Like, it's not your matchup to control. It isn't your team. You aren't the manager of that other person's team. So, like, that's the way I see it. Let someone else manage their team however they want. If they want to give that other person a win, like, it isn't to spite you. Well, maybe it is. You know what? Maybe you suck ass in trading. Like, maybe they don't like you as a person. I don't know. But that isn't my problem. Manage your relationship better.
Well said. All right, let's move into some trades and non-trades and get to help.
I love the energy. I love it.
Maybe they do. Maybe they don't like you.
Please don't quote that. I don't know.
That's like.
Oh no! I'm definitely cutting that up and posting that on Twitter for sure. That's going out there.
All right. Trades. Who's got this?
All right, this was mine actually. It just happened this morning. I sent out a couple offers last night because I realized I was losing Derek Carr. Down to one quarterback and Russell Wilson. And this league is a unique situation where I'm currently, I think, the 5th seed, but in our leagues, this is DU2. In our leagues, the 5th and 6th seed get in on points. So if I want to get into the playoffs, I have to win my game, but I also need some help. I need the 4th place team to lose as well, and they're going up against the number 1 team in the league. So I know I have a shot here, or the current number 1 team.
Yeah. No. You're right. I was trying to think of who that was. Sorry. No, I'm not the number 1
it's not you.
I know I'm the number 2 team. I just beat the number 1 team, but yeah. Anyway.
Yes. Well, I need Snoopy, the number 1 team. That's David. I need him to beat actually Jesse. And if that happens and I win my game, I'll flip into 4th place. So I really thought to myself, like, I need a quarterback here, an extra quarterback here. To put in my super flex spot. So I traded Daniel Jones, who was on my IR, 3rd round pick, and Jerry Jeudy for Matthew Stafford. What do you think?
It was necessary.
I don't think you're giving up that much in the grand scheme of
really.
things. I've said it. I'll say it again. I'm not a big fan of Jerry Jeudy, and he's probably the best asset on that side of the trade. I don't think Daniel Jones, unfortunately, has a very prolonged career just due to health reasons, honestly. I do think physically as a player, he's totally fine. I think he'd probably have a nice 8 to 10 year career, but not as a starter in the league. Take the guy who you probably can get a good potentially 2 or 3 more seasons out of Matt Stafford. So
yeah,
he's 35, right? He's 35. 2-3 more years. You're talking about like 38, 39 years old. There's a total chance unless he gets his neck fucked up again. But yeah,
it's always a risk.
I think Jake and I like it more than you do, Billy. So
no, you do. Everybody likes it more than I do. Like I came into the chat immediately and I was like, I don't like what I just did, but he accepted it so fast. I felt like I actually could have got it for less.
Yeah. Oh, that's
you know what I mean?
Feeling.
So maybe that was part of it where I was like, I probably could have sent like Jeudy in the 3rd, and held on to the asset that is DJ. Not that matters that much, but like anyway, I could have done something else. But it's not even that. It's just like. This better work. Like I think that's what I thought in my head. I'm like, this better work out. But I think you guys are right. I'm souring on Jerry Jeudy, and that's really the story of this trade for me. Is that I think I finally come to a point where I'm like, and obviously I was slowly getting there with the Christian Watson, Jerry Jeudy trade, like moving him in that trade kind of was me like toe in the water, like, yeah, I'm about done here. And now this is kind of me fully getting out. I think that was my last share of Jeudy. And I just don't like, it's really disheartening, concerning, discouraging. I think that's what I'm looking for. Discouraging watching him play with Russell Wilson and not do anything. Like, I know he had a really long catch in that last game, but if he didn't have that, he would have had 2 catches for like 15 yards. Like that, it just doesn't make sense. Like Cortland Sutton's out here balling every single week, and Jerry Jeudy's just not really showing up, and it can't be much else but the player. So, at this point, when you see this much this little production over this many years, it's generally not good historically for a player's overall success, fantasy-wise. So I'm out.
You want to know something really funny about that trade? Sorry. I was thinking back. Unfortunately, that's how my brain works. I was thinking back. I'm pretty sure, and I looked it up, that Maverick at one point. Did you guys trade Daniel Jones? He
traded Daniel Jones to me in the early in the off season. I remember this was, I knew what I was doing here too. But yeah, he traded me Daniel Jones, and it was actually, he got like, do you have the trade in front of you?
I don't have it, but it was a lot if I remember correctly. It was like
I traded a lot. Like, yeah. I think I gave Brandon Cooks a first and something else, I think, too, for Daniel Jones. It was not a good trade. I've made some. I'll tell you what, putting yourself behind the 8 ball at quarterback in a Superflex league makes you do some really terrible things.
Yep.
Disgusting things, and I've done more disgusting things in this league than I'd like to admit.
Sorry, I just wanted to call that out because I thought
you nailed it.
Yeah,
you nailed it. Yeah, it was bad.
Oh, I have it right here. It was Baker Mayfield, Tony Pollard, Brandon Cooks, and the one.
Oh, that's bad. That's bad.
Yeah,
that's really bad.
Hey, but now you have Stafford. So,
but this
is what I'm saying. You got to keep. Hey, but like at some point,
no. I know you can't do it like that.
No, you have to. I mean, you do have to think about it. Fortunately, I set myself up in that league, if you remember, with a ton of assets at wide receiver, and was able to. I still have a ton of them.
Yeah, you
so
still
move a lot of them.
Yeah, I'm very envious of your wide receiver. But
okay,
better. Who's got this next one?
All right, sorry, next one. This was Console Wars, I think.
Console Wars, yeah. Sorry,
I think this was Console Wars. Kamara and a 4th for Zach Charbonnet and Pickens.
I'm sure context matters, but I'll take Charbonnet and Pickens.
Yeah, the Kamara purchaser is basically solidifying the fact that they're going to try and win all of Console Wars. I think it was Flying Uppercut, which is FF Doormat. Yeah,
Matt Hatton.
Yeah.
He's in DU leagues too. Yeah, shout
out. So I think the trade makes sense from that regard. Pickens losing Pickett and Charbonnet probably not being the starter for the rest of the year. They don't really have any value on his roster. He actually has a ton of assets. If you looked at his team, like, he did a really good job with constructing that roster, and he still has, I think, 2 or 3 firsts for next year. So, getting rid of Charbonnet and Pickens really is not going to be that big of a deal for him moving forward.
Yeah, I think I agree, though. I like the Pickens side long term. We totally missed that news that Charbonnet is injured.
Knee
I don't know how serious it is, but yeah, the knee injury. So could be Ken Walker season.
That.
Yeah, it could be Ken Walker season for the end of the year here. The injuries just don't stop coming, do they? Okay, last one here. I actually got this offer from somebody. I just thought it was interesting. Like, I don't know why. Like, we're talking really bottom of the barrel interesting shit here. This is what I find interesting. Tanner Hudson, tight end for the Cincinnati Bengals, who's come on lately, or a 4th round pick.
Give me a 4th.
I'll take the guy. I don't. If I can go every rookie draft and not have a single 4th, I'll be happy.
Tanner Hudson's almost 30 years old, and this is the first time that he's ever made a name for himself. Like, give me a
Travis
4th.
Kelce 2.0, baby.
No, give me a 4th every single time.
All right.
I love this.
That's insane. He's not coming around at 30, dude.
I didn't know he was almost 30, actually, because like last time I remember him, he was on the Bucs with Brady, and I'm like, this guy's young, but I guess he's not.
He's 29. Let me see what his birthday is. He might have just turned 29.
I mean, still, that's
Yeah,
like,
he just turned 29 in November. He'll be 30 next November. Okay. Nah,
yeah. Well,
give me the floor.
I think this comes down to, and I think this is worth talking about really quick, but I think this comes down to how you feel about your ability to analyze prospects coming in. And I say that because of guys like Puka, Dell. I've gotten Terry McLaurin's in the 3rd and 4th rounds of drafts in the past. Like there's a good deal of value there if you trust your analysis, if you trust yourself as a analyst, as a film analyst, whatever analyst of these guys coming out, right? And for myself, I do trust myself, so I think in that respect, I'm more willing to take on 4ths in general. And hold them and try to take my shots, right? And say like, my shots are going to be better than my opponent's shots, at least most of my opponents. So that's kind of how I was thinking about this. And I think that if you value your evaluation skills at all, you should maybe value late round picks a little bit more.
That's fair. I don't think I'm very good at it.
Honestly,
yeah, but you got all of us around you, brother.
I
Come
know.
on, like you're good. You're good. No, I think you're good at this shit. So yeah, like you don't have some confidence in yourself.
The way I even saw it, and in the grand scheme of things, is I agree with you completely, Billy. But as well as like if I were to get even a 4th round tight end in a rookie draft, which there's a lot even go undrafted in rookie drafts, like they're gonna have more value than Tanner Hudson ever will. And just because he's having this like little spurt while they have legitimately no tight ends on their roster, except for people who love Irv Smith, I guess I could have I could have sold Irv Smith in the offseason, man, for like a fucking 3rd. I think Uriah sent me a 3rd for him, and I was just like, nah, I'm gonna keep him because he's young and he's got a future. Anyway, yeah, now I have a 0 value asset on my team. You're welcome, Uriah. But like that's like a perfect situation of. That's a type of position where I want to try and get rid of, guys who are now 6-7 years in the league and have basically no value, because I just don't see them ever coming back around from this. And it's mainly just down to what else is there on that team. It's like the Logan Thomas argument from in Console Wars. I'm not saying Logan Thomas is a Tanner Hudson. He's obviously had a very prolonged career, but this idea that a 32 or 33-year-old tight end who has a prolonged injury history has this like regained value as a 2nd round pick is just absolutely nuts to me. Like that's just not a reality. And Tanner Hudson, if you can get a 4th for him, dude, I'll ship it to you. Like with my hand, I'll drive to you, give you the asset.
I like how Jake found a way to take a shot at the Console Wars guy.
Sorry about that, but I'm not.
No, I appreciate it. Don't be sorry.
All right. Anything else you guys want to talk about before we get out of here?
Nah, that's all we got. We filled it up.
All right, everyone. Thank you for giving us a listen. Follow us on Twitter at Dynasty Underdog, at Uriah Dawkins, at Willie Beeman TFF, at Jake Abrams. Join our Discord. It's free. It's fun. We'd like to see you there on Sundays. Listen to us on Spotify if you can, and check us out on the YouTube. Other than that, y'all have a good night.
Later.